can I ask you a question?
You just did.
The GM of the year this year, what did he win for?
This is the thing I keep saying with Lou Lamoriello, because everyone talks about him. Well, not everyone. There's two schools. He's either the best GM ever, or he's an idiot who wouldn't know how to unlock his own phone. And so many of his moves, if you look at them individually, are terrible, especially fiscally, like financially, in terms of the cap, in terms of you might lose one of your best defensemen in a couple of years. Like the Islanders haven't been through enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of all that, if you look at them individually, they're terrible. And there they are in the second round 2 years ago and in the third round this year. And we looked at their free agency a few years ago and they signed this guy, and this guy to replace John Tavares. And we're like, they're going to finish last place. And what the hell?
Yeah.
They get Robin Leonard and they turn him into a Vezina candidate, which sounds like a ridiculous thing to say now because you're thinking of Robin Leonard over the past 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was the most ho-hum of the ho-hum. Thomas Greiss was coming off like the worst year of his career. I don't know. Lou Lamoriello is a fascinating case to me because I wouldn't have done at least 75% of the moves he's done since joining the Islanders. And who can argue they're a bad team?
You can't. They're not a bad team.
You can't.
Okay. So let's separate some things here. First off, if you think Lou Lamoriello is an idiot, I question your sanity. The man has won several Stanley Cups. I could say confidently that you could maybe make an argument that he's past his prime. And that's possible. It's going to happen to everyone. There can be a time where we all have to stop broadcasting because we're just not as good as we used to be, or it'll be time to retire and actually just go to, get on the golf course or do whatever. I don't golf, but you know what I mean? There's a time for everyone. Lou is 77, 78 years old. There are people that can make that argument, but Steve, the results don't show that. The results show that he's doing great. I'm reading about him a lot in Brian Burke's new book. I'm reading that right now. And it's a fascinating book about, to me, it speaks a lot to hockey management culture. And I'm really, really enjoying it. And he talks about Lou Lamoriello and the effect that Lou had on Brian's life. And I'm not going to get into it. Hopefully we can get Brian on the show to talk about it a little bit. We haven't organized that or anything, but we'd love to have him on. Lou Lamoriello, to me, has a makeup in his mind of what a team needs to look like, what a player at each position needs to be for a team to be successful. And, when you look at like the Leo Komarov contract, which is one that sticks out to me, lunacy in terms of what it costs, but they could afford it at the time. Now they're having issues like what they have with Ryan Pulock, which, he's just signed a 2-year deal where it pays him about $5 million a season, and it's going to walk him straight to free agency, and he's their best defenseman. So what Lou has done here is he has kicked the mega contract down the road a couple years. And in an effort, I believe Matt Barzal still needs to be signed.
Yep.
I haven't seen anything. Lou's kicked Ryan's contract down the road. Matt Barzal is yet to be done. He's doing what he has to do right now rather than probably what you would want to do. I bet that was a tough negotiation. I bet the Barzal negotiations are pretty rough as well. But what I think yes, in a vacuum, this doesn't look good. But Lou Lamoriello is probably thinking a couple of things. First off, I may not be here in a couple of years, and I need this guy in the lineup. And number two, we'll worry about that problem. What's Lou's number one saying? If you have time, use it. He's just given himself time. There's nothing that says as soon as this next year is over, because as soon as this next year is over, he can start talking extension because Ryan Pulock will have 1 year left on his deal. And you can start talking extension. Okay, then I'll talk. Then I got 12 months from that point to figure out the next extension for this guy, and pay him what closer to what his market value would be. I think Lou Lamoriello is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. I think there's a little bit of ageism there. I think that I could disagree with a lot of what Lou Lamoriello has done. I'm not necessarily a fan of it all, but what you can't do is argue with the results. The Islanders have been, since he got there, a team that's made the second round twice. Right? There's nothing you can.
They were in the Final Four.
They made some moves that are questionable, no question. They had to give up Devin Tays for 2 second round. Like, not good. Not good. Tough. And probably not what they were expecting.
But the result is the result. You give up those assets and you're like, oh, that's not great. But then in the end, if you're in the Final Four of the entire NHL, you're like, okay, that was worth it.
And they have the best goaltending coach in the league by far. Like, they're along your lines, Jesse. Like, they've revived Robin Lehner and then Semyon Varlamov's careers in consecutive seasons.
And then hired Barry Trotz.
Yeah.
And just became like the league's best metapod. Like we've talked about, just defense, hard.
And that's a Lou team. Wasn't that what New Jersey was when they were at their best? It was Patrick Eliashu scored all the goals. Everybody else just keep Brodeur protected. Yeah. That was it.
Steve.
Yes.
Can we bring up what you mentioned before the show?
What did I mention?
In that, does Lou think he doesn't have a lot of time left in the game of hockey and that now his moves are just to win now?
Well, it's just a theory. One, because you're never going to learn anything about Lou Lamoriello from him, right? Mm-hmm. He's never going to reveal anything. But I'm just like, I look at the Pulock thing, for example. You know, why would he do something as short-sighted as, you know, only sign him till his UFA year and then he can leave? And what I came up with is, well, surely he's going to be done soon. Right? But we said that how many years ago? We said that before he was Leafs GM. You know, not many people work into their 70s at all, let alone deep into their 70s. Lou Lamoriello is probably going to be the first ever 85-year-old GM. And, you know, you mentioned ageism. Maybe it was a little on my part saying, well,
mine too.
He doesn't think he has long left. So he's like, screw it. I'll kick this can down the road and it's someone else's problem. And here's a 2-year deal for you. We thought that about some of the things he did with the Leafs. You know, meanwhile, you know, here he is still working several years later. He gave Zaitsev a 7-year contract, and that wasn't short-sighted as much as it was just a bad move. But he was obviously like, yeah, this guy will be great for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's got a fascinating brain. I think what we lose with Lou Lamoriello sometimes in evaluating his teams is you need to look at every player on his roster and assume you're getting the best version of that player possible.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be. Because like I'm just looking at the Islanders now, and it's disrespectful, obviously, given what they've done over the past couple of years. But I just look at the team that they have, and I'm like, there's no way they're pulling this off without the absolute best that all of these young men have to give them.
Yep.
But that's a credit to management, right? If you throw together a collection of guys and then those guys all mesh and they perform and they give you their best, then that's kudos to management. Thumbs up for throwing in a great collection of guys that'll perform.
It's a state of mind, right? Like the shaving thing we thought was ridiculous, but it's a state of mind. Every day you wake up and you're in the bathroom after, you know, just waking up, and in a way you're at work. You got to shave. So, okay, that's how the day starts. And now I got to go to the arena. So I'm going to show up in, you got to show up in your suit. And, we're on the road. And from the moment you wake up in your hotel that morning, you can do whatever you want for breakfast. Or actually, no, you probably can't. You probably got to have a team breakfast. So every part of your day is controlled by your work. You have to shave. Then you got to get dressed in a certain way. Then you got to go have, breakfast with your teammate. Every moment is work. It's professional. We can talk about, how that translates to other fields and, driving people nuts and everything. But geez, look at his track record in the NHL. It seems to work.
Yeah. Now I don't love that move for them because you want to grab some free agent year deals, free agent years. However,
to be clear, I hate this for them.
But but the fact is they didn't, and he still got now 24 months to figure out the extension.
And
it's not the worst thing in the world. It really isn't.
And you could argue they have a window because they made it to the second round and then they made it to the third. And of all the teams Tampa played, who gave them the most trouble?
The Islanders.
Columbus, arguably.
Columbus gave them trouble. I felt like the Islanders were just they gave Tampa a better version of what the Blue Jackets gave
them.
Columbus,
yes.
Yeah, there was an argument to Dallas. Dallas was pretty feisty. Boston just didn't hold up.
Good.
Good. But even though the Islanders got caved in terms of shots, they reminded me so much of the 2013 Leafs where, they're getting outshot to hell, but at any moment, there's a breakaway going the other way and you're boned.
And it's funny with Lou Lamoriello teams, there may not be a dearth of talent, but they seem to outperform expectation. I mean, if you look at the 16-17 Leafs, and then the next year, the 17-18 Leafs. There's
a little element of youth with the Islanders that I guess because they've only been Islanders in their career, we kind of forget about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Anthony Beauvillier is a super underrated player. Barzal is even probably an underrated player. And another thing about Lou Lamoriello teams is he likes to have the same guys on there forever.
Yeah.
I'm curious. There is part of me that would love to know what those RFA contracts would look like. The Leafs RFA contracts would look like under Lou, because with the Devils, I mean, you can think about any team from any point in our childhood and probably rattle off the same core 6 or 7 guys, right? There was obviously Brodeur, Niedermayer, Stevens, Danico forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
Up front, there was Patrick Elias. I remember there was a lot of Jason Arnott.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the Islanders, he's just John Tavares obviously left immediately, but beyond that, I mean, he knows who he likes. Anders Lee is locked up forever. Brock Nelson is locked up forever. Jordan Eberle is locked up.
Anders Lee didn't almost get locked up forever, though. Remember, they made him sort of the second choice last year.
Joe is locked up forever. I think that was an extension by him as well.
And he was a great add to that playoff run. There's no question.
Yeah. I think, so in terms of, my stupid little thing where I'm like, oh, he's not thinking about the future. Typically his moves are, so maybe we should take into account the pandemic and how it may have stifled even Mighty Lou.
I think if you were to put Lou Lamoriello in charge when those contracts with Marner, Matthews, Nylander were signed, first off, I don't think Tavares happens. Flat out, I just don't think it happens.
I agree.
So, I think that there's less pressure at that point, to be honest, because there's no John Tavares in Toronto. I don't think. Beyond that, and anybody who says that that's a good thing forgets that he scored 47 goals in his first year here.